is that I'm not a Zoom wizard. And so bear with me on some of the technical parts of running a Zoom meeting. First thing, will you, if you have your camera on, will you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Awesome, thank you. I am going to post here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a minute and see everybody that's here. And I understand if you don't want to open your video, that's okay. But if you wouldn't mind opening your video, it'd be great to see your faces and have it be a little more personable tonight. A couple of norms that we've found to help video meetings go as well as possible. First is to keep your microphone muted until you're ready to speak. That will help us out. And then also to we'll use some of the chat features. So if you have questions as we go and you'd rather not speak, we can use the chat window. Rocky Harmon, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, good. All right. So in the chat window, I'm going to paste our agenda that I emailed out earlier today, and hopefully that will kind of guide our discussion. It looks a little long in that chat window. I want to start with just a quick review of some foundational elements of Summit Learning, and then get into some of the questions that came through on the survey that you responded to in the email. So I'm going to share my screen again with this PowerPoint that was running just prior to the meeting. And just a quick review, and I can share this with you if you're interested in it. These are things that you've seen before and you should have access to in the platform and the parent part of the platform as well. First of all is just a review of the outcomes of Summit Learning, which are going to show up here for you quickly right here. First of all is cognitive skills and math concepts, and then habits for success and content knowledge. Those are foundationally the desired outcomes for Summit Learning. And these cognitive skills are organized into 7 key domains, and you can see them here. And I would bet we all as parents want our students to build skills in these things, and they get these skills in school. The value of a platform like Summit Learning is it's very intentional, and that these cognitive skills are threaded through all of their Summit courses. As a parent, and many of you know this, I have a son that's part of this Summit Learning cohort. And just as a side note, my wife is joining us on this Zoom call tonight. This is our date night. So welcome to our date night. I hope you enjoy joining us. It seems like this may be the time we get to spend together this week. I hope she enjoys it. So again, these cognitive skills are things as parents that I think we'd all agree we want our students to learn, and these are skills that they will use in the rest of their experience in high school and beyond into post-secondary training, as well as in whatever career path they choose. This slide we're not going to go through a lot, and that's why I'll share it with you, but the general structure of a math unit. And there's a couple of things I would like to highlight on this, and that is this part right here, where students they'll take an assessment like they're used to, but they have opportunities to take alternate versions of their math exams so that they can improve their scores. The goal of Summit isn't to be the first one to get it or the fastest to get it, but to make sure that we learn it. And if it takes a little longer, that's okay. And that goes across all of the Summit classes. And we hope that's a thread that you pick up, that it isn't about how fast we get it and that we got to move on and leave you behind. It's that we get these important cognitive skills and math concepts, even if it takes a little longer. And the platform is designed to help us personalize that learning for your student so that they can get those key skills and content knowledge. The second one here is content knowledge. This is really mostly what we're familiar with in schools, that we learn stuff. and that content knowledge is very important because it gives us opportunities to apply what we've learned in different situations. So moving forward, again, habits of success. This is also a thread through all of the Summit learning platform and the program. This shows up a lot in the mentoring class in terms of explicitly talking about habits of success, but it's also in the math, science, English, and history classes. And you can see how these are organized. We work on all of these, but we're really at the beginning of this year and this first year working on attachment, sense of belonging, attachment, and stress management to help kids learn to organize themselves and set goals. So the next slide is just a quick graphic on the self-directed learning cycle, which we're probably familiar with in some form or another in all of our experiences, whether they be career experiences, school experience, or other personal experiences. So, but this is a part that's really important in the Summit Learning Platform and talked about very explicitly. And then this last one is just a quick graphic that students will have probably seen in some of their Summit classes, but it's just, it's a suggestion on one way to work smarter. And it's not the only way, but it gives students an idea of how to navigate and maneuver the platform and make decisions about where they need to spend their time. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on here, but I can send this little presentation out and I can add a link so that you can look at it later. And I think these are available in the students platform and in yours as well as in the parent part of the platform. So that's a quick overview of the foundational pieces of the Summit Learning Program and really the why. I hope we can all agree as parents that those are things we want for all of our kids in their school experience, those cognitive skills, that intentional focus across content areas of content knowledge and cognitive skills, as well as learning habits for success and how to set goals and accomplish them and make a plan and evaluate. So before we move on to an overview of the platform, I want to note that we have a couple of our teachers here. Mrs. McGarry, the Summit biology teacher, is here. Thanks for joining us. And Mr. Handy, the Summit English teacher, is joining us tonight. And
hello.
Thanks, Mr. Handy. And we also have Kelsey Flint, who's our staff developer. Recently had twins. Congratulations, Mrs. Flint. She's joining us tonight also. And so they may chip in and add to anything that I'm saying. I don't want this to be a monologue. I really want to provide an overview and then make sure we provide at least 30 minutes for questions and answers that are specific to what your students are experiencing. Again, I do have to say my son is in the cohort, and I think he's expressed maybe some things like your students have expressed to you. Like, Dad, this is pointless. That's my best impression of my 16-year-old when we talk about goal setting or the Summit platform and how it's working for him. It's pointless, Dad. So if you're getting anything like that from your teenager, we're in good company, but hopefully we can talk tonight about helping them through that. One quick request for you, and that is if you don't yet have access to your parent login through Summit Learning, will you send me an email, respond to the email I sent about this meeting, and then I will make sure that you get logged on or you get your login information. For some reason, the automated email login was not working well in Summit, and so I'll double check those if you email to make sure that you can log on and see what you can see as a parent. Okay, let's overview the platform, starting with parent access. My son has agreed to let me share with you his platform, and I'll share with you what I see as a parent and what you will see as a parent. So I'm going to share my screen again. If you will give me a thumbs up if you see a page that has progress at the top, just a little note saying progress. Okay, thank you. For parents, you will see this as kind of a landing page. You'll probably see this progress page, or you might see this announcements page where your student's teacher puts announcements. Now I'm hoping that I can continue to see the chat. If I don't go in a orderly manner down that agenda, I apologize. It just disappeared on me a little bit, but we'll figure that out. Okay. Let's start with the layout. So this is the landing page, and these are the navigation items that you'll see. The two that I've used most often as a parent and as an educator are, well, I'll say three: the week view, the year view, and the progress view. The year view shows you everything. This is probably the page that students get overwhelmed by. And because it shows them everything in their summit classes really for the whole year. So this is my son Pace's, and green is awesome. He's done a lot of work for that, but we'll also dig into that a little bit and help you maybe understand some of what your students are seeing.
Mr. Keim, is it okay if I interject something real quick?
Please do.
One of those focus areas in my class, Pace just got to green today, and he had to work very, very hard to get it, and he was very relieved when it happened.
Yeah.
So if your kids are taking more than once to pass a focus area, that's normal.
Yeah. So you'll notice as I highlight that in English class, it'll pop up, and I hope you're still seeing the right screen. Tell me you're seeing this year screen, and it says it has a little box with audience and purpose. All right. So you'll see that today he got a score out of 8 out of 10 on those content level assessments. He has to get 8 out of 10 in order to be considered mastery and pass that power focus area. You can see how many attempts it took him, and that he mastered it today. And you can see the related projects that are also power of persuasion that you'll see along that top line in English that's up here. Power of persuasion and rites of passage are the projects for English, the first two. So you can see how this power focus area helps him with those projects. We can drill down into this a little more and see how he did by objective within that. Now, again, we don't need to take a lot of time, but let's say we're looking at one of his attempts that did not go well, that maybe he got a 4 or 5 on. We could look and see which objectives he struggled on. And then if we wanted to, we could click on that, and it brings down resources that he can use to build his knowledge in that area. So if Pace really wanted to, he could request to take this assessment again, in theory, and try to get a 9 or a 10 if he wanted. Now, he's not going to do that. He's perfectly happy with an 8. But he could work with his teacher on something like that if he wanted. So again, that all you can drill down to there from this year page. And again, this shows you kind of at first an overwhelming view of everything that they see. The week page is it starts out as a blank page, but it's a place where they set goals. So for our son, you can see that he's accomplished 2 goals this week. One today, or actually it was yesterday, but one was to pass that power focus area in English. And then he got to click that was complete, which is it's funny to watch kids do that. It's very gratifying for them and for us as adults to see them do that. You'll see today he was planning to work on his power focus area in cells for biology, but he didn't quite get that done. Now he could move that over to the next day as a goal as well. So this week page is really a goals page for them that their teachers work with in that goal setting process. So as they get familiar with this is a very valuable thing as well. So that's generally the layout. Now grades, let's talk about grades, and that's in this progress section right here. So if I click on progress, you're going to see all of his activity for this week, that he's finished 3 of the 5 of his goals. You're going to see some of his activity, some green check marks, some things he still needs to do. You know, he took his diagnostic assessment for cells but didn't pass it yet. Over here on the right, you're going to see grades. Now, 4 of the 5 of them say not applicable right now. And the reason for that is they haven't completed the timeline for a project yet. The one exception is biology. So if we were to go back to this year view, the way each class is organized is these cognitive skills projects at the top are really the priority, and they consist of 70% of their overall grade. These power focus areas consist of 21% of their grade, and then these additional focus areas consist of 9% of their grade. And so they're organized in terms of, I think, importance and weight into their grade. So if we go back to PACE's progress, and I know we're moving kind of fast, hopefully in the Q&A we can revisit some of these things if we need to. But if we go over here to grades, and let's look biology, because he has a grade there. Now you might think, well, he finished a project in biology. If we look here, that's good. He hasn't passed a power focus area yet. He got 6 out of 10 on one attempt. He needs to work on that. And the line is about to pass that here in a couple of days. So why is he getting a C+? Well, let's look at it. If you click on this, you can see the grade breakdown. So he completed a project. Now on that project, he got right down here, there was 2 skills to measure in that project. And on one of them, he got a 4.5. That cognitive skill was making connections and inferences. And on the second skill that project measured, comparing and contrasting, he got a 5. Now on the rubric for these cognitive skills, a 10th grade level would be somewhere between a 4 and a 6. He got a 4.5 and a 5.5, which is kind of in this middle percentage range for a 10th grader. That 81% cognitive skill average shows up here. So of the overall weight of the grade for this class, that's what he earned, getting 81% on that first project. Now on power focus areas, he's on track because he's not behind yet, but in 2 days he'll be behind if he doesn't pass that power focus area. And we could click right here and look at that power focus area and see, yeah, he hasn't mastered that yet, and here's where he needs to work to be able to pass that. So he's getting a C+, and I'm not worried about that as a parent, because I know he's going to work on the power focus area. I also know that if he wants to, he can work with his teacher and revise this project and improve that with his teacher if he wants to. But I also know that he's going to have other cognitive skills projects that are coming up and give him a chance to raise his overall cognitive skills project score throughout the term. And I know this is a lot of information, but I hope as you get in, and we'll do things like this periodically to help us get more comfortable. So as I look at the cognitive skill, again, he's getting a C+ right now in biology. I wish that was better, but I'm okay with it because I know he's working at it. And again, we're looking at projects. So after one project, this is his project score. Here again is the 5 on comparing and contrasting. And you can see the checkpoints. He didn't do the 3rd checkpoint, but that wasn't necessarily something Mrs. McGarry said that he needed to do, because he submitted the final product and it was within that range of 10th grade work. Now, teachers may work with students differently on those checkpoints, and that's okay. Some they may want to have all green, some they may allow to stay in a yellow kind of a phase, but they'll work with your student on that. Now on this page, I can see that comparing and contrasting is not assessed again in biology, and neither is making connections and inferences. So if he wants to work with Mrs. McGarry to get those scores up, he certainly can. And I would want him to, but he may not. He may be okay where he is personally. Now I can see the other cognitive skills that are going to be measured in biology and how many times here that they're going to be measured. So let's say we're on this cognitive skills project, photosynthesis and cellular respiration. If he were to get an 80% or something like that on the first try, he knows that there's going to be another opportunity sometime this year for him to work on that cognitive skill. And if he gets a higher score the second time, that really is going to replace the first score. We're not going to average them together. We're going to give them the higher of their scores over time because they're demonstrating that they're developing those cognitive skills. So that again is that idea that we're not worried that they're the first one to get things like sometimes we get in school. We just want them to develop those skills over time. So that's probably maybe too much involved about the grades, but I wanted to be clear about where you find the grades, which is in this progress portion here along the top right over here. And the grades are calculated by those weights. So I know students are worried about grades. They want to see their current grades and they want you to see their current grades. But in addition to looking at what their current grade is, drill down and kind of see how they're doing there, and look at their power focus areas and their attempts, and so you can get a sense of their progress. Okay, let's transition. I know we'll come back to potentially questions on grades. Let's cruise through a few of these just so we can hopefully answer some questions on our way through. How do students know what to do and when to do it? This is a question, and it's really a question of familiarity with the platform. Mr. Handy or Mrs. McGarry, do either of you care to maybe give them a break from my face for radio and talk about how do students know what to do and when to do it?
I can talk about that for a bit if you want.
Sure.
Could you go back to PACE's announcements page?
Yeah.
So every week on Monday, I send an email to the kids. This is what we've got going on this week, and I also post some form of that in announcements. I try to keep it brief. I learned from the kids the first week that the English teacher talks too much. I posted a much longer announcement than they wanted to read, so I'm trying to keep those brief. I'll send it to you in more detail in the email. But we're just trying to work them through and pace there. If our situation were a little different right now and we could meet in class every day, we'd probably be doing things a little differently. But it's not. So each week they should expect to have about 2 class days worth of project work, which we'll lay out for them what it is. Now, this week we're wrapping up a portion of the project in my class. So the alternate day of project work is super easy. It's tell me which debate you want to be in, and I've got that in that announcement there. But you'll have about 2 days worth of project work, and you should spend some time in self-direction working on focus areas. But
can I interject here for a second,
please,
Mr. Handy?
Please.
So again, these announcements are pertinent information from the teachers. You'll see here that Mr. Oliverson, the world history teacher, gave students a guideline for this week saying, hey, step 4 of the project should be done this week. So if I go to this year view again, and I look at Mr. Oliverson's world history class and this first project, again, here's the pacing line for the year, and they're right in the middle, a little past the middle of this ancient civilizations project. And he's saying, he's providing that guidance in the announcement that step 4 should be done this week of this project. This project is an autopsy or an obituary on a classical civilization of their choice. So you can see steps 1, 2, and 3 build on each other. And he's saying step 4 should be done this week in order to be on pace. So if your student is saying, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, they can always be in any of the classes working on one of these projects steps. So if my son is on this explanation of evidence portion, here's the instructions. He can click on it. Here's what he's supposed to do, explanation of evidence. And then once he's filled this in, he requests feedback. Now, Mr. Handy gave a good explanation to students of what this really means. Would you share that, Mr. Handy?
Absolutely. I had somebody saying, I wish there was a submit button. I said, I think the reason why the submit button says request feedback is because when you submit something, it vanishes into the ether and you never have to think about it again. But with feedback, we're expecting that we're going to request. And if you even notice this, this icon right here with the next to explanation of evidence at the top of Pace's page, the icon for a checkpoint assignment is an arrow going one way with an arrow coming the other. So it kind of has built into it this idea that we're going to send something and we're going to receive something back.
So when our students are saying, I'm not sure what to do, they can always go to, again, any of these projects in any class that they haven't yet completed and look at whatever checkpoint is next. We don't need to worry about the mentoring right now, so don't worry about that. So if I were to click on Mr. Handy's class, I can see my son has 3 checkpoints done, but he can always work on the 4th one in order to have, know what to do and work with Mr. Handy to get feedback. So when he's done with that, or when he's worked on checkpoint 4, debate practice, then when he's done what he needs to do here, then he requests feedback, and then Mr. Handy gives it back so he knows how to make adjustments, and all of this builds toward the final project. So as we talk about the cognitive skills and helping kids develop those skills, the feedback portion is important, where typically in schools, again, like Mr. Handy said, we say, well, let's submit it and then I hope I get a good score, but whatever I get, and I'm not gonna ever have to deal with that again. Sometimes we get caught in that mode where we really want students to say, I'm submitting something I've worked on, my teacher is gonna give me feedback, and then I'm gonna be able to improve it as it builds toward a final project that then I will be ready for because I've done these checkpoints along the way.
Mr. Kime, can I answer a question that was put on the chat real quick while you're in my project here? So there was a question about green, yellow, and red being an issue with color blindness. Would you please click on any one of these that Pace has got feedback from me on? And then just go ahead and click on the timed essay outline. Click on the product that he turned in. It's up at the top there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right there. So if you notice the main overall score I've given him up at the top there is continue working. So if you're having trouble differentiating the green, yellow, and red, green will be labeled continue working, yellow will be labeled review feedback, and red will be labeled stop and revise. And I think you can see that in the progress page as well. Do you mind if we check that? And yeah, I was just looking at the list of things that happened there. If you go back, if you close this, Mr. Kime, you go back to the main one.
Okay.
Okay. Today, Michael Handy said, continue working on timed essay outline. And you probably see similar things on the others. You worked on a checkpoint, and And there's the feedback there. Continue working, or review feedback, or stop and revise.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if they're if they're wondering what they should do, a projects checkpoint is a great place to do, a great place to get to work on in any of these classes. So the next checkpoint to work on, and their teacher will have provided feedback on the last checkpoint they worked on and where to go from there. Another great place for students to work is a power focus area. They can go to any of these power focus areas. They could even jump to the last one. We don't recommend that because it's slightly out of context, but they can work on any of these power focus areas that they want. So if my son wanted to jump ahead to what was medieval Japan like, even though we're working on ancient civilizations, he could go in, take this diagnostic, see what he knows already. If he does very, very well on the diagnostic, he could, in theory, request to just take the content assessment right now. And if he scored 8 out of 10, then he would have demonstrated mastery. More than likely, he may not do as well on the diagnostic, or he may not pass the content assessment, at which point he goes back to these resources, the introductory materials, the objectives, and he has a playlist of things that he can start to work on. So there's always things for them to work on, and again, this pacing line helps them to know what they're doing. So on their digital days, their teachers are providing guidance for them to say, hey, work on this in class, and depending on where you are, do this on your digital day. Now, just as a side note, the great thing about this is as students are working in the zone that they're working in, our teachers can see where students are getting hung up individually or as a group, and then they provide that personalized whole group or small group instruction when they have them in class. So for example, in Mrs. McGarry's class today, I joined her 7th period for a little bit, and they are getting ready for this Discovering Cells project, and she wanted to make sure as the whole class that they understood the parts of a cell so they could be successfully prepared for this cell analogy checkpoint. She didn't feel like they needed time in the cell introduction, but she wanted to make sure they understood the parts of a cell so that they could begin to do this project. Now, I'm putting your words in your mouth, Mrs. McGarry. Is there anything you would add to that? My thought being just that the teachers can see where students are and select the most impactful activities that they do in class together to make sure that students get what they need, rather than just what anything we wanted to prepare.
We'll get it.
I'm not getting it. I'm going to.
We'll have to get it. Oh, someone's at my door. So sorry. Kids are at the door. Hold on.
It's not a Zoom meeting without something like that.
I know. Can you hear me okay, or do I sound like an alien?
You're good.
Oh, good. Okay, so, oh my goodness. So in class today, I did do that. I did provide a whole class group work together. Now, there were some kids that had done the first checkpoint and felt ready to go on, and they just worked on their own, which I thought was a really good thing.
Okay. So again, there's the part of the advantage of small groups of students, or the whole class if needed, works on the whole class activity. But if students have already done what the teacher's working on, then they can continue to move on and make progress. So again, what should they do? Project checkpoints, power focus areas, and they can do those in class, and they can also do those on their own on their digital days at their own pace. Now, the next question, I know I'm doing a time check and we want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. So what to do if I'm struggling? Here's some of what we've heard. Sometimes really students that it's coming easy to them, they feel slowed down by the checkpoints. We are sensitive to that, but we also want to make sure that they're prepared for the final project effectively, that they can get the best score possible on the rubric. Teachers are giving feedback regularly, but we don't want them to get down the road on several checkpoints before they get feedback to know that they're on the right track. Mrs. McGarry or Mr. Handy, would you add anything to that thought?
Yeah, I can. So can you pull up Pace's project from the first project on the scientist?
Sure.
Okay. All right, go to checkpoint 1. And you can see what he submitted right here. All that highlighting, I had made notes down the side. I don't know if they're still going to show up over on the right-hand side, but I gave him tons of feedback and I highlighted stuff so he could fix it and resubmit it again, right? And so I would say, oh, you've missed the point of this. You haven't given me a comparison, or you haven't given me a difference. So I say, rework it. Once they did that, then I said, okay, you're at the yellow phase, right? Continue working on this, fix these things that are wrong, and review it really is the term. So I have really spent a lot of time giving them feedback. I know some kids aren't reading it because they submit the same exact thing the next day. So, which is, you know, but I am reading this and I am giving specific feedback to help them because it is about mastery.
And a side note again about the color issues, if there are those that are struggling to see these colors, if you'll just communicate with your teachers so we can use maybe an underline function or something like that, and then to make sure that they read the comments again on the side, because there will be comments that the teacher leaves along with any highlighting or underlining.
Maybe try to go to his next checkpoint and see if you can see the comments on the side. Because I know I gave him some comments.
Looks like they disappear after they make.
Maybe after they send it in or something. That one's not going to have anything. That one's a broken link.
Okay.
And the final one, I don't make any notes because that's their final piece, right?
Okay.
So I'm not sure where those are.
We'll figure that out. We hope you know we're learning a lot about this platform too, and adjusting as we go. But there are comments there for students to see. So again, if they're feeling slowed down, that's one of the reasons. But there's also, you know, there's 4 classes where they can use checkpoints, project checkpoints. So if they're slowed down by the English one and they're waiting on Mr. Handy's feedback, do a biology checkpoint, do a history checkpoint, do a math units checkpoint, or work on a power focus area until they get that feedback. There's always plenty of very engaging and relevant, meaningful work for them to do. And we've already talked a little bit about red and yellow checkpoints and what those mean. And then again, we talked a little bit about struggling to pass a content assessment, particularly with my son. So he finally passed this one and was very gratified, but it took him 5 attempts. So the idea here is now, as they learn to study and take notes on what they're listening to or reading or watching, that helps them really prepare and retain information. And so some of those study skills are inherent in that. And teachers are working on Cornell notes and those kinds of things to help students to be able to develop those and understand how they learn individually so that they can improve those. So if your student's struggling to pass content assessments, those are the kinds of things to talk about with you as parents as well as their teachers, learning how they learn so that they can retain that information and pass those content assessments. And again, teachers will be seeing data and looking to see maybe on concepts where they're getting hung up so that they can address those in class together and reinforce that as well. Now, a couple of final things before we get to Q&A, and I apologize that it feels like this is monologuing, but I really hope it's helpful. And I hope, you know, you can call me anytime, email me, Zoom call, and we can learn together how to make this a great experience for students. One of the things that we really, really want to make sure, and we talked about this with at the first, is I hope you can see the habits for success now. Give me the thumbs up if that's what you're seeing. This growth mindset, that's kind of a buzzword, you know, in the last few years but we really want students to have a growth mindset. And sometimes we'll use the terminology of flexing a growth mindset, meaning we have to intentionally say to ourselves, I'm going to have a growth mindset on this. I'm not going to just be frustrated with the challenge. I'm going to figure out how to get through it. And I have teachers and a mentor teacher and even students that will help me. So flexing the growth mindset. One of the concerns that was shared in the forum was how do we get kids to work through this when they're self-teaching? And that idea of self-teaching versus self-directed learning, that we're really talking about the same thing. There are lots of opportunities within Summit, because it is personalized, for students to do self-directed learning or self-teaching. That's part of what we want. We want them to learn how they learn so that they can use that to their advantage. That doesn't mean they're left all alone without instruction from the teacher in class or without resources to help them. Our teachers aren't just saying, open your computers and get to work. But there may be times where the teacher says, hey, we're going to have a chunk of self-directed learning time. So set your goal on what you're going to work on, and then we're going to revisit that. If you're stuck on something, send me a message in the platform or raise your hand if you're in class, and I'll come around and we'll work through it together. But there will also be times where teachers pull, like Mrs. McGarry did today, pull everybody together for really important things for the whole class or even small groups, and work with them that way. So think about that value of self-directed learning, and just know that we're not leaving them alone, and we're not trying to remove the teacher out of the process, saying the teacher just says, go to your computer and go to work, because that isn't the intent, that isn't our method. And so if it's feeling like that, think about that self-directed learning process and those pieces that we're trying to use to help kids learn how they learn, and that we're trying to support that and personalize that. Because every kid's a little different. Now, one of the last concerns, and I shouldn't say the last concern, but one that was shared, is multiple platforms. Your kids probably have some classes that are using Canvas. Yeah, amen. Our teachers are doing that too, and I don't want to be dismissive of that, but managing multiple platforms, especially here 5 or 6 weeks into school, is definitely a challenge. My request of you is hang with us here with this summit. Keep plugging away, get familiar, and I'm confident you will find the value in what seems overwhelming now, but as you get familiar, you'll know things you can do in class. You'll know things you can do on the digital day. Your teacher will support you in setting goals and in personalizing learning to meet your needs. So it is a new platform. It's not as familiar yet, but hang tight, hang with us, because this is really great. And again, we're learning at it. We're not perfect. We're getting a little better at it all the time. Nod if you agree, Mr. Handy and Mrs. McGarry. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm just going to scan really quickly down the group chat, and maybe some of you can help me if I'm missing a question, so that we can get to the question. Looks like Brad Christensen said, is there a way we could do an experiment and put a test comment now? Yeah, Mr. Handy, is there a way that you could maybe go in and put a comment? I don't know if Pace has done any work on the power of persuasion, or if you could go in and add additional feedback maybe on checkpoint 3.
Yeah, I can do that.
And see how that shows up. So Brad, we'll see if we can do that.
Yeah, we're wondering if it's maybe something that doesn't show up on a observer's account.
Oh, okay.
That the comments just go to the student but not to the observer, possibly.
Okay.
I hope not. I'm pretty confident an observer can see it, because we want you as a parent to see that feedback as well. And
Are you looking at your son's on his account, or are you looking at it through your access to his?
I'm viewing it as his. Maybe I can ask my wife to pull up her account, and we'll see on that one as well.
Because I don't have access to the Observer account right yet. So
Okay.
you and I, we need to get that straightened out as soon as we
Yeah.
can.
And I'll
sometime.
absolutely.
I sent you an email, so it should be in
Okay.
your box.
Perfect. And I'll
All right,
try.
Mr. Kime, I just added a comment on checkpoint 3 for him.
Do you know about where it was?
Very near the top.
Okay.
Mr. Kime, we're
Yeah.
looking at our sons through our Observer account, and he has one that is orange, review for feedback, and we can't find any feedback on it at all.
Okay. Okay. That is good to know. So that's something we're gonna figure out, is how the observer sees the feedback and what we can see as parent observers.
Maybe we're just not looking in the right place. I don't know where to look.
Well, if
I
you're
just
Go ahead.
put a comment on PACE's assignment checkpoint number 1 for discovering cells.
Okay.
And I just put, hey, this is a test to see if parents can read this. Can you pull that up and see if we can see it?
No, we can't. Okay, we're gonna figure that part out.
Okay.
That's great feedback. So I apologize for that, and we're going to get that figured out.
But I know the kids can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
so, you know, they can take that feedback, of course, and move forward.
Yeah, I was just concerned about the ones where you're saying it seems that they ignore it. If we can come in and when they're
Right.
struggling and help them out and say, oh yeah, well look what
Sure.
the teacher said here,
Yeah.
type thing. If we can't see it, we can't see it. That's all right. But
I'm confident if there's some reason we can't see it, we can help make that change, because part of the goal of Summit, again, is for us to work together as a team and be able to ask the right questions of the students as a parent or as the teacher to help them get past whatever obstacle they have in their checkpoint or their learning. So I can't imagine they wouldn't want us as parents to see the comments. Okay. Again, I'm just scrolling down these questions.
Mr. Kime, there's a good question recently put up about GPA. Do you mind if I say something about that?
Please do.
So the question, if you didn't see it in the chat, if a student completes a project later in the year, how does that affect their GPA? I am perfectly willing to go change the kid's grade. And Mrs. McGarry's nodding if you don't see her. I do not care in the tiniest when your student learns something. I care very much that they learn it. Some people will say that you may hear from some teachers, oh, that can't be done. I'm perfectly happy to show those teachers how it can be done. I taught a student named Keisha Hansen in 2006 at South Davis Junior High. If I had a compelling reason to change the grade that I gave her, I could do it. I don't know why I'd want to at this point. She's probably got several kids of her own in school by now, but you know, I do worry sometimes that the number of grade changes I creates an immense amount of paperwork for Mr. Kime, but I don't mind, and I don't think he minds, you know, signing a form if it means we have a grade for the child that reflects what they know and are able to do.
Right. And we're not worried about, like Mr. Handy said, when they do it, it's that they do it. And so the way the Summit, you know, that year screen is organized that shows them everything they need to do, while again, it can be overwhelming as they get familiar with it, they see that these cognitive skills are woven through. And then when they demonstrate proficiency in a cognitive skill later in the year, we're going to go back and make sure that that's reflected on their earlier grades. So we could get to third term and change their first term English grade because they've demonstrated that they've learned that cognitive skill and earned a higher score, earned a higher grade. And we'll do that, absolutely. And you won't even have to request it. It's just going to be something that's the way we approach it. other, just shout out any other questions. Again, I apologize if I missed them in the chat, so just fire away.
So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I was wondering, so when my daughter this week, we were talking about Summit and trying to look over her projects and power focus areas and then the additional focus areas, because I've also got a 7th grader at Legacy doing it.
Mhm.
So we're all trying to figure this out together. In the end, like she's comparing classes and she's like, whoa, my history class has like way more additional focus areas than others, and it just kind of overwhelms me. Like, is that something teachers can modify and change if like down the road they find maybe this is a little too much, or like it kind of almost felt like a little bit like she's saying this is like busy work.
Yes, that is something that teachers can modify as we go along. Our intent isn't to overwhelm them, and that may very well be something that happens as we adjust those additional focus areas, because those additional focus areas do factor in. It's 9% of their grade, and that probably won't change in terms of that it's part of the grade, but how many of those we're asking them to do very well could be adjusted based on the teacher, and that's part of that personalization as they see how the whole class is doing and where students are getting hung up.
Okay.
And also could adjust just based on how the year shakes out. I mean, we've all lived through 2020. We know that we're going to get a meteor for Christmas. I mean,
Right. Or
Some-
grasshoppers.
Don't listen to Mr. Handy.
Grasshoppers.
no, but if something changes, if we have to adjust how we're doing the school years some more, and there's just not enough time for students to reasonably, like I started the plan for this year with 5 projects for my class. You'll notice there are 4 now, because when we had to change the schedule a little bit, I thought, okay, we need to change a little bit how we're thinking about this. We're not going to have enough time to do these things. I don't want to put that much on these students. And if I have to go down to 3, I'll go down to 3. It just, I mean, we don't know how. That's the thing I've learned most this year is we don't know what's going to happen next.
And
So we'll adjust.
We have a team of these Summit teachers and a few other teachers called our Personalized Learning Committee. We meet every 2 weeks, and these are the kinds of things that we'll talk about and process, especially as we keep going through the year, about making appropriate adjustments to how much we're expecting and what we're expecting of students. And again, I think this is really the value of Summit, that we can adjust the projects and the power focus areas, but we'll still be focusing on those essential cognitive skills so that they'll be developing those. And I think there's great value in that. It isn't about how much we have to cover. We're sensitive to that, but we want to make sure we get essential skills developed no matter what our school year looks like. Thank you for that question.
Yep.
Anyone else have a question? Monica posted on the chat, what advice do you have for students whose parents feel like they're already far behind? Monica, are you talking about far behind in terms of where we're at with Summit specifically this year, or just kind of generally far behind in school?
You're muted, Monica.
Okay, I pushed the space bar, it didn't work. Just in the Summit classes, I mean, if you look at him, all the teachers know he's hardly turned in anything. And so we're trying, we're bribing and consequencing, and we're just stuck.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to avoid giving parental advice because my kids tell me regularly how horrible I am, and they're probably right. But as we look at, we're approaching October 1st, and I'm going to just share my screen again just because maybe I think it's cool. But as you look at this year view, I hope you're seeing the year view. Give me a thumbs up.
We're not seeing the screen. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So it can be easy to say, oh my goodness, yeah, whoa, we're behind in every class. We've deliberately taken a methodical approach to launching Summit. And so I would dare say that no student is far behind right now. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Handy, Mrs. McGarry?
Absolutely.
And we understand the newness of this. So I'm not telling you not to consequence because you know your student, but I think focusing on, hey, let's start small with a win. If you haven't done any checkpoints on English, let's go in and set a goal in this week view and say, hey, for English, let's set a goal that by Friday, you're going to on this powers of persuasion, you're going to finish checkpoint 1 or something like that, and create a goal, and then follow up with them on it and say, how did that go? Where did you get stuck? I'm not saying that's going to solve the problem immediately, but generating those small wins for students to help them build confidence. We're not worried that they're behind again because we're going to help them along the way. We're not going to leave them alone to flounder. We're working with them on goals, and we're getting better at that too. But I guess I would ask, join in that process and say, hey, which checkpoint are you on? Show me. If you haven't done any, let's start on 1, and let's work on that. Show me what you've done, and let's go from there. And again, philosophically, I love that, because rather than saying you've got to get your work done, just check it off the list and I don't care, get your work in, get your grade up. Those are things I say regularly to my kids, but now I can change the conversation to say, hey, it looks like maybe we are behind a little bit. Where do we start? Okay, this is the cognitive skill, this is the project. Where are you stuck? It looks like checkpoint 1 is to have a little introduction. Let's do that, or work on that and let me know how it goes. It changes the conversation from just get your work in and get your grade up to let's look at what you're really supposed to be learning and doing, and we can look at it together. And not that you have to sit down with them and do that, but you can help set a goal and give them direction and focus, and then they, as a part of them learning to do that, and then let them work and check in with them. As I get these parent accounts set up, if you're okay, I'll put your cell phone number in there and you'll get texts from a random number, but it'll say, like I'll read one that I got for PACE. And it says, and it just gives some what I think is awesome prompts. It says, PACE completed a science project this week. Ask PACE, what cognitive skills were assessed? How did you show them? And then it says, text stop to end these messages. And I haven't done that because I like them. They give me a prompt of what to ask. PACE has a science project due within a week. Ask PACE, what is your timeline for completing the project on time? So it just gives some little prompts to generate, I think, healthy discussion with our students as parents, rather than just saying you're behind, if you're grounded if you don't get this done. And that we don't want that conflict to be a barrier to their school experience. We want to maybe change that conversation and say, where are you hung up? How can we help? How can your teacher help? What does your feedback look like? It just, I think, and I hope, changes that conversation. Marcy, Laura asked, how do I get those texts? I will go in and put your cell phone number into your parent profile. And so you should start getting texts here by the end of the week. Marcy says, I don't understand the verbiage used in the program. It's really foreign. Yeah, I guess we hope that we get familiar with it. Things like Mr. Handy said, hey, request for feedback is really submitting an assignment. Each checkpoint's like an assignment. So getting used to the verbiage is a part of the deal, but I would refer us back to those underlying outcomes of Summit: cognitive skills, content knowledge and habits for success, things we all want for kids. And so as we get used to this verbiage, it really connects in with that. Susanna also asked, how do I get those texts? Yeah, if you'll shoot me an email, in fact, I'll go through in the next couple of days every parent of a Summit student, and I'll make sure that that email has been sent and that your cell phone number's in there, so we can make sure. I apologize you haven't received that because the automated system was had a glitch. Okay, thanks, Brad. You get the text, but not the credentials to log on. We'll get that taken care of. Okay, address the question of being ahead. So I assume we're talking about getting ahead and a student who's cruising through. Mr. Handy, would you maybe address that?
I'd
And I
love
know,
to.
before he goes, I know we're coming up against time. I don't think it's going to kick us out, but if it does, I'm sorry. And if you've got to log off because you've got another commitment, I just want to say thanks, one, for joining us tonight, and two, thanks for having your student in Summit. Please hang with us as we get familiar. It's really going to be a great thing for them as we get acclimated. So, okay, go ahead, Mike.
Can we introduce the term of unconsequencing now
Unconsequencing.
for the students who are ahead?
Oh dear. So I had a conversation today with a student during my mentoring class. He had breezed through the early checkpoints, breezed through some focus areas, and he was doing great. And he completely misread the directions on the timed essay that we wrote in class this week, and I sent it back to him for revisions, and I didn't give him a score. And we talked about it, and he said, "Yeah, I guess I totally missed that." So he's got a plan for how he's going to revise that. And then after he and I had that conversation, other folks in the class were talking to him, saying, asking why he was pushing so hard. He said, "Are you kidding? I'm gonna get done with this class in like March, and then and then it's summer break early. I mean, isn't that great?" I sit here and I kind of winked to myself, because if he gets done with my class in March, I'm going to have a conversation with him saying, "Hey, how great would it be for you to finish another class right now? Why don't I see if Mr. Kime will open a different class, and I'll manage that for you, and you'll be a student of one in that class, so that you can learn some new stuff ahead of time."
Yeah. I pulled up and shared my screen to maybe illustrate what Mr. Handy is talking about a little bit. This is just a demo screen. This is not a real student, but this is a student who, in a November timeline is really working ahead in power focus areas, is on track generally in their projects. And what Mr. Handy is saying is exactly right. If a student completes the class, meaning successfully completes all the projects, the cognitive skills projects, successfully completes the power focus areas and the additional focus areas, what we'll do is have a conversation with the student and you. The first part of that conversation would be, did you get the grade that you wanted out of this class if it wasn't an A? Saying, are there cognitive skills that we want to go back and rework so that you show more depth on that rubric and get the grade that you want? Let's say they do have the grade, they have an A, and they've earned that honors designation. Just as a side note, I don't know that we've ever really said that if a student earns an A in these classes, that is a rigorous level of work that earns an honors designation that we'll add to their transcript, because this is high quality work that they'll be doing. So that just as a side note. The second part of that conversation would be, okay, if you finish this class, do you want to work on your other classes? Do you need some extra time now to work on those other classes? We would still have them, for example, go to Mr. Handy's class, and but they would have self-directed learning time and be able to work on their math or on their science or on something else if they wanted to do that. Or we could say, do you want to open up the English 11 class? And Mr. Handy could kind of guide them through the beginning of the English 11 Summit class to get them started on that class, regardless of if they're a sophomore. So we really have options to personalize the learning for students that are working ahead in a variety of ways that meets their needs and meets your family's needs based on circumstance. So I hope that answers that question of students that are working ahead. Any other questions?
Sorry, I just had one now that I thought of it. So so my daughter, she's really striving to just get 4.0 every single year of high school. That's just how she is. Does she have to then get like 100% on every single one of those areas, like additional focus areas, like do all of the checkpoints, everything, the projects, or how does that work? Because I know where it's broken down, like your project areas are 70% of the grade. Power focus areas are they 20, and then like additional focus are 9. And so like if she really wants that, does she have to do like all of that, or how does that work? Like that's what I'm trying to figure out, because for her, I think she's feeling a little bit down looking at this going, look at all this stuff I have to do now. That's just a lot. I'd rather just write a paper and turn it in versus do this checkpoint, and get a grade, do this checkpoint. That's just kind of how she's feeling right now.
Sure. And it really is a little bit of a mindset shift, especially for kids that are used to working ahead and that school comes pretty easy to them. They're perfectly capable of doing summit level work, but we're going to require them to go deeper, not in that we're going to require them to do everything at 100%, but that where they're used to just submitting it and it's really pretty good, and that's the end of it, and they kind of check all the boxes. Now we're going to be giving them feedback to say, you're doing great. I think you can go at even higher level work. We won't require that necessarily to get an A, but we want them to continue to develop where they are rather than be stagnant on that rubric and those cognitive skills. So I pulled up and shared again. I hope you can see this demo, this year screen. Give me a thumbs up if you can see this demo. So if we go to this student who's working ahead and look at her grades, so she's working ahead. And if we look at where she's got a B minus, we can see that in the breakdown in her math units, she can improve a little bit there, and she can absolutely go back and do that. But we want that A to really represent that it's a superior level of work. So she doesn't have to get 100%, but she sees, if I want to get an A, I can improve that a little bit in there. And in my additional focus areas to show a depth of learning, I'm going to want to work there. So
Okay.
Again, in a pandemic ridden year, we're not just going to leave that all and say, well, you got to do everything. We're going to make adjustments for what an A looks like in a pandemic year, but that A that represents a superior level of knowledge and skill, we aren't going to want them to just be stagnant and say, hey, you're great at this already, you get an A. We're going to say, hey, that A really represents that you took where you were and took your skill to another level.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we don't want her to be overwhelmed, but we also want her to know, hey, you're going to run up against times, whether it's this year or next year in college, where it's going to challenge your skills. Let's not wait till you're worried about that. Let's challenge your skills now in a very methodical and reasonable way so we continue to build them.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Let's see. Shelley's question about is getting an A rare, and Kelsey Flint's answering that. So it's not rare, but again, it is, it's not easy. You know, we don't want getting an A to be easy, not that it's unattainable, but we also want students to know that if you want an A, you know exactly what you need to rework, because the teacher's going to give you feedback. The teacher's going to help you see on the rubric what A level work is, and help you to rework that as long as you're willing to do it. So it isn't going to be a mystery about what it takes to get an A. They're going to get that specific feedback and be able to continue to rework it so that they can. So let's say she gets a B in the first term. That B can be turned to an A later as she demonstrates and reworks those cognitive skills and gets better on that rubric.
Okay.
And I just to piggyback on that, I think one of the best parts of Summit Learning is the mentorship part of things. So every student has a mentor who sits with them and sets goals. Also, sorry about the crying babies in the background. They're a little loud. Hey, just sec. Anyway, if your daughter has a goal or your son has a goal to get an A, I'm sorry, bud. If they have a goal to get an A, they can sit down with their mentor, and their mentor can help them and help them set the mini goals along the way to get there. And they're also there to help them with those habits of success, those soft skills, so to speak, to help them develop those in order to reach their goals. So, if that's a goal that they have, they absolutely can do it. It's not going to be easy, but they also have a really good support system to help them do that.
Thank you, Mrs. Flint. Again, Mrs. Flint is our staff developer. She works with our teachers on instructional strategies and is also part of our personalized learning cohort and has been through all the summit training. So she's awesome.
Mr. Keim, there's a question that just came up in the chat.
Mhm.
I'd love to be able to answer it, but I think you're the one who needs to answer it.
Well, the answer is yes. Our intention is to have that same mentor throughout high school, through all 3 years. So they really develop that relationship. If you have additional questions, please feel free to email any one of us. You can call me and we can set up a meeting or whatever you'd like to do. We'll try to do these periodically to deal with issues as they come up. I can't thank you enough for spending time here tonight. I hope it was helpful. We'll have this video recording set for people to watch. If it was just so great that you couldn't get enough and you want to rewatch it, we'll make that available. I also had a few parents say that they weren't going to be able to attend and wanted to see it. So we'll make this available again, but I can't thank you enough for taking time and then also for sending your kids to Clearfield High School and for choosing to have them be a part of this summit program. It really is a great thing. Battle through this. This is healthy frustration that we're experiencing right now with our kids because it's real. It's going to be meaningful learning, and they're in a process. It's new, and so the discomfort is very, very healthy. So hang with it, get through, and communicate with us. We're going to help your students. We're not going to let them just flounder. So hope you have a great night. Thanks again. I look forward to hopefully meeting in person at some point soon. If not, then we'll continue to meet electronically. And again, never hesitate to call, email, or get in touch with me or any one of our summit group. Have a great night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.